So my name is Eva Koťátková. I'm a visual artist. I'm based in Prague, and this is also where I was born and where I studied and where I currently live. I would say that my general theme that I'm dealing with in my work is how an individual or a collective or a society is shaped by different normative cultural patterns, and how difficult it is then to unlearn yourself if you want to function in more democratic, more inclusive or in more empathetic ways. So that's the overall topic, and I think the development of my work went from trying to describe the more restrictive, limiting apparatuses that surround us, that somehow shape our bodies and our minds, to situations which I guess you can also see here in the exhibition, which are a bit more open structures that you can adapt with your bodies, you can shape them with your bodies and with your activation. I would say the reason of this shift or of this change through the years is also connected to the use of material, because originally I was using metal to create all these imprisoning apparatuses, cages that represented for me a sort of mental restriction that we carry with ourselves from childhood through the lifetime. And recently, maybe a few years ago, I started to use textile, which allows me to create more flexible, more open structures that the participants, either the visitors or the audience, can shape or form themselves. The aim or the goal of the exhibition, My Body is Not an Island, is to give space and possible support and visibility to all those voices who are from many different reasons silenced or stigmatized or discriminated or not given even enough space to express themselves. I guess the whole installation speaks again very much about what actually I have been dealing in my work, but I think here it's given much clearer outlines and also much bigger scale to examine that is how we are under constant pressure to follow certain repetitive normative patterns, how to behave, how to speak, how to act, how to move, and so on, and how we constantly have to find the courage or have others maybe to support us and encourage us to unlearn, to somehow like rethink if what we are doing is actually meaningful, and if maybe we shouldn't somehow try to search for more meaningful, more open and inclusive ways how to be together. I think I arrived for the first time something like 2 years ago, maybe even more, to see the space for the first time. Of course, I was very impressed by the scale of it, by the whole atmosphere of the building and so on, and especially by the exhibition space. And as soon as I learned about its history, which is really intriguing and rich in stories, I think very early on started to think about also about a storage of a kind, but a different type of storage, not a static place where things are stored under a pile of dust, but rather a kind of transitory space where not only objects but also living beings, living creatures, both humans and non-humans, are accommodated for a certain period of time. They are perhaps measured, diagnosed, but they are also given space to think about how to unlearn, how to revolt, perhaps, or how to dream about other types of possible futures. I think I very early on also started to think about the motif of a fish, which is a motif which is not completely new to my practice. I have worked with it already before, first through drawings and collages, which is also my quite frequent practice, but also through costumes and other types of work. And here I felt it would be kind of appropriate for the both related to the history of the space, the storage of the colonial goods, but also the fact that the Bordeaux is next to the sea. But at the same time, fish for me is a kind of very ambiguous being or creature, which by many is not even considered as a proper animal. In a way, this is something that you can on everyday level encounter in the restaurants, where they offer you, if you don't eat meat, they offer you fish, which is a kind of very bizarre situation, but it's also an animal which actually we don't know that much about how it uses its senses, how it feels emotions and pain and so on. And also it's an animal which is so much fixed to its environment that if you put it out of the water, which is actually the situation here, it's not just a fish, but it's a fish which was thrown out of water on a shore, and actually has which is a kind of imaginative situation, of course, already in regard to not die because of the lack of air. It has to decide how to adapt on the new situation, how to cope with the new circumstances in the space, and this is when it becomes something between the fish and the human, possibly. The title, "My Body is Not an Island." I wish I would have learned the French sentence, but I will not risk it. is I guess very much connected to, or I guess resonates in relation to the colonial history, not only France but also many other countries, and I think it speaks very much about how our bodies are still very much colonized by different systems and pressures and structures around us. This is happening in more invisible ways, but this doesn't mean it's less harmful or damaging for our bodies and minds. The sound piece or the audio piece which you will hear in the installation is actually equally important as the physical installation that you will encounter in the space, and it's something that I have a little bit or slightly done in the past. I was working in the past mainly in storytelling, so with recording of stories of people that I have collected in the past years. But this is kind of a new approach, because in this case me together with three other collaborators, which is Ursula Uwe, Mary Štveri, Mary C, and Martin Hula, who are the main authors of the sound landscape, we thought about combining 21 stories that you will hear in the space. These are especially located in the fish head installation in the space, and then there is a sound installation, a kind of overall sound landscape that you discover when walking through the space, and this sound landscape changes when you walk, so it's never the same. The same as when you walk and you are constructing or composing the image from what you see from the different sections of the decomposed or fragmented body. The same you do with what you hear, with the acoustic perception. So you are composing together bits and pieces that you hear from different parts of the installation, and the sound combines both musical elements, singing, the storytelling part, which actually is happening in 3 languages, in English, French, and English. And Czech, sorry, the 3 languages. The stories that are presented in the space, it's 21 carefully selected stories, which I have to say I'm a passionate both storyteller but also a collector of stories, that I'm doing this kind of growing archive for already the past few years. And sometimes I use them in a written form, sometimes in an audio form, sometimes as a live performance happening in the physical space. Here it will be actually a combination of all these 3 possible versions of how to work with a story, and the stories are coming from different sources. Some are poetic stories that I wrote myself, so fictional stories. But this is only a small percentage of them, but the majority of the stories are real stories collected from different representatives of groups that are from different reasons oppressed or silenced or not given voice enough. So then I've spoke with, some of them are my friends, some are just people that I've collaborated with on other projects or that I approached because of this particular project here. And so I would record their stories, and then had three voices, three actors, singers who would borrow their voices to the installation and share these stories with the audience. The stories are very diverse. There are sometimes speaking humans describing their stories in the first person. There is, for example, a story of a child. The title of the story is called The Story of a Body Which Didn't Grow Yet, which is a story of a teenager who is speaking about basically his or her long journey through different institutions, different normative institutions, and how the body was being labeled and diagnosed and somehow normalized in this process, and how the body also suffered in this long-term process, and but how it still wants to change it, and how it is still dreaming. And there are other type of stories that are perhaps a bit more poetic, but not less cruel, I would say. And those are stories, for example, of a bush which was transported from a faraway land, or perhaps some kind of island, all the way to here, to the exposition, to be later on sold, maybe in pieces, so cut or portioned into pieces, measured, and then someone would earn a lot of money by selling it. And basically what you hear is a kind of litany of this bush, describing the whole situation, which is actually very hard for the bush to change or to affect. And there are other type of stories of bodies that are from many different reasons on the move, either on mental move to just try to change something around them, or on a physical move, bodies in transition, or bodies that are actually traveling, and they either because they are forced to travel somewhere else, or because they are seeking some change in their life. So the installation functions as a kind of almost like night landscape with specific lights put on the different sections of the installation, and each of these sections is going to be activated with a story. So basically each crate or cage or costume carries a story with it. And during the week, these stories can be heard through the audio, and you can also read some of the stories, or you can look at the installation, which looks as if a group of bodies would just left, or maybe they are somewhere on a break, or they are resting in another corner of the installation, but you don't see them. While on Sundays in the afternoon, you will have the chance to actually hear the stories live through three performers who are again giving their voices and their presence and their performativity to the installation, and they will basically inhabit. The goal is to for them to not actually perform that much, but rather to become one with the installation and to bring it into life, to somehow complete it with their presence.